Hello, everyone. I'm Jana Moore, and I'm the Executive Director for Epilepsy Support Network of Orange County, California. Not Orange County, Florida, not Orange County, New York, California. And Tracy and I have known each other for, 28 years maybe. We met when our daughters, they were 4 at the time, went to epilepsy camp, and that's how we met. So we have known each other. Tracy was on our board of directors for our nonprofit and really helped us a lot. So, of course, whenever she asked me to help, I'd have to say yes. So, um, our nonprofit, epilepsy advocacy nonprofit in Southern California, is for all people with epilepsy. So we're not a diagnosis specific nonprofit, but what we do specialize in as far as helping individuals with support, advocacy, and resources is we call them the raries. It's the rare epilepsies because they're the ones who have the most difficult time getting seizure control and getting answers and making progress. So they're a little more embedded and they're with us a lot longer because it's the easy epilepsies that come do a few presentations. We give them the good stuff. We give them the referrals to the epileptologist, and then they're out and seizure free. Okay. So that did not happen to my daughter. So we are a lot of the oldies but goodies. Sometimes we call them the oldies but goodies, and sometimes they call themselves lifers. So whatever title you want, we're in this together forever. So, but we're in great company. Okay, should we get started? My LGS folks, should we get started? Okay. Okay, so the title of this presentation, and don't let it scare you off, okay? I think it scared off some people, is Crisis Planning, Seizures, Hospitalizations, and Emergencies. So we're going to start off with a little icebreaker, and we'll just kind of go around very quickly if someone wants to tell us with, and I guess I could facilitate this. How many of you are here because you have had a diagnosis within the last year? How many are you? Okay, we have some newbies. 2. Okay, give them a hand for being right on it. They just got on it, right? They're not waiting. Okay, last 5-year diagnosis. 5 years, okay. 7 years, got here. 10 years? Okay, who's longer than 10 years? Okay, are we at 15 years? Okay, go ahead and shout it out. 23? 22? Anyone else over here? 20? Okay. Lots? Okay. Quit counting. There, yeah, I'm with you. Quit counting. Okay. In the back? LG, yes. All of them. 24 years. Okay. So we have from first year 24, so it's a lot to cover, but the oldies but goodies that are going to be sharing a lot with us, and I hope you do share because this is an interactive presentation. So now that we know our involvement with LGS and epilepsy, let's ask the next question, because I know everyone is thinking this in their head, is you probably have the biggest fear of, what if this happens? Or what do I do if this happens? So does anyone want to be brave about when we're talking about emergencies and planning and seizures and going to the hospital? Does anyone have a fear that they want to share that might be the same fear that anyone else has? Okay, right here. Oh, here we go. Yeah. We're professionals around here, just so you know. We got the mic.
Hi. So as you guys heard, we just got diagnosed last year, and it's been very stressful, for us, for the family. But I think one thing that afraid of, and I hope that you guys can give us some advice, for the people that have been through it longer. They give us the emergency medicine, the rectal one. So I think that would be like one of my biggest fears as far as like administering the medication, So if anybody has any advice on, what to do and how to go if we ever need it. Hopefully we don't,
Right.
but you never know with this type of stuff. So if anybody has any advice, it would be greatly appreciated, guys. Thank you.
Wonderful. And that's going to be an easy one. Okay, how old is your child? 2? 2 years old. Well, I have information for you. Okay, so ask your doctor. I'm not a medical professional, but this medication right here, the age has been lowered to, I believe, 2 years. And there's a newer medication that people don't know about. It's called Libervant, and it's for 2 and up. So there's rectal. You have 3 options now. So look what you just learned. So there are 3 options now. And maybe if you feel more comfortable with one, because I know that is like a barrier, but I can help you if you want to stay afterwards for a few minutes, because I've administered these before, and I teach classes on it. So we can definitely talk about it. And it's really easy. It's so easy. You know what? It's easier than changing a diaper, and it's the rectal, and it's easier than those glycerin suppositories. Okay, who's ever done a glycerin suppository? Raise your hand. Those, okay, and the Diastat is so much easier. It is one of the best designed, applicators around, and so we'll talk about it, okay? Because that's going to be an easy one, and we're happy to help. Okay, who has a in the back? Go ahead. And what is your biggest fear?
Well, I had a crisis. My daughter is 25, and she's had seizures since she was 18 months. They're all different types of seizures, but when we were giving her a bath, she went into the water. And, you can't get a naked person out of the bathtub, even though there wasn't a lot of water in there. She went into the water, slippery as all. She ended up kicking the porcelain toilet and breaking it. We had 911, and we had the rescue medicine, but we didn't have it handy, and you couldn't get to her because she was seizing in the bathtub. And so obviously we now don't do any baths. We have a shower, stool. We have safety things in place. But I got to tell you, that probably was the most difficult thing, because we couldn't get her above the water. She was fighting us so much during her grand mal tonic-clonic seizure. So
it is that, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And it only takes 2 inches of water to drown. So you could have that at the bottom of your shower. I always tell people, and thank you for bringing that up. My daughter's older too. And if you have an older kid, they're showering, or you have a caretaker showering them, or maybe a sibling is showering, always keep in mind that shower, because most people don't do baths because of that exactly, is if that shower starts to just slowly drain and you get 2 inches, that is a drowning hazard. And there are those little like ripper sticks that you can get from Home Depot that you just keep plunging that shower. So that's an easy fix. Don't let it ever do a slow drain, because you cannot get the water out. And for baths, unfortunately, my daughter, she can bathe herself. She sits in the bathtub, the drain open. Not a real bath, but she can go through the process of bathing, because that is really a hazard. So that's what a bath looks like. But you're right, the shower seat is good, and then the handheld shower type thing, because it definitely is a hazard. So thank you for bringing that up. Anyone else want to talk about your biggest fear that we can maybe work on? Anyone else? It doesn't have to be a big... Okay, we got someone right here, a brave soul right here.
We've experienced seizures pretty much everywhere, but we like to still have our son out doing things. So he does horse riding, and he does, he's had a seizure on a horse. He does swim therapy. He's had a seizure in the pool. So it's really those things that, like, I'm anxious every single time. So it's
Right.
just like keeping allowing him access to things while
Right.
still being safe. Those are the things, or as safe as we can be. Those are the things that
Right.
I think about a lot.
I think you're absolutely right, and thank you for bringing that up, because we, as parents of children, toddlers, teens, young adults, adults with epilepsy, we have this constant GPS going in our head. And so when our kids, when they're going to therapy or they're going on the horseback riding or, even going to the theme parks and getting on a ride, that's my fear. It's like, they're strapped in. And so I just do in my mind is, okay, worst case scenario, go to the worst case scenario and work my way back. Because that way you're like, okay, what happens if? What do you do if? And then you manage it the best way you can. You plan for it, you manage it, you go through it a couple times in your brain, and then you develop the plan, and then you activate the plan. Does that make sense? And then I don't do anything that I'm not going to be able to manage myself. So, in a swimming pool, there's going to be, a lifeguard and my husband or something. My daughter is seizure free right now. She doesn't have LGS, but she wasn't diagnosed forever. And we went to 9 doctors, and it's just been, to hell and back. But, I always say to myself, don't get depressed about it. The reason why my daughter had to go through everything is so that I would understand how other parents feel and understand the level of stress, the level of anguish, the level of desperation, the level of depression, the level of hopelessness. Because if you don't understand it, then how can you really, walk together in the grief of epilepsy, right? So every time something happened, and maybe this is just me, I had to have a reason for it. You have to have a reason for it. And Tracy, her daughter with LGS is, I believe, in a higher cause, is that my daughter with her chronic epilepsy is, I believe that God knew that us parents were going to do something, And so instead of just, having these kids and being lost in anguish and lost in grief, we decided to turn around and put up the biggest fight in the world and bring all of you along with us, because your grief is my grief and my grief is your grief. And we can get through it as long as we are united and we're together and we're making progress. And as the speaker said earlier today, is we're going to have joy along the way, right? Because we all work so hard, don't we? Yes, we do. And we all are weighted down with, the stress of the unpredictability of epilepsy. Studies have been done about epilepsy, and the one thing that really causes a lot of stress and anguish is unpredictability. So the unpredictability of epilepsy has brought us to here: crisis planning, seizures, hospitalizations, and emergencies. So the unpredictability of where they're going to have their next seizure, when is it, are you going to be within arm's length, all of that. And it can really wear you down, and your stress levels go up, etc. But if we together can share our experiences and plan for best case scenario, then that burden of stress and grief is really alleviated. And so that's what I want to do here today. I'm going to share some of my own personal experiences, and we're going to laugh about them because I prefer to laugh, not cry, okay? And if I make mistakes, and I share them with others, because when Tracy and I had our kids, we didn't have pediatric epileptologists or pediatric epilepsy centers. We were on our own. We were managing the meds. We were doing the increases, decreases, because there were no epileptologists. And I'm not saying that you should do that, never, 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 because we have come so far. And luckily, you won't have to experience what we had to experience, but it took a toll on our children. It did. And the reason why we're doing what we're doing is because we don't want any child or any family to go through what we have been through, and we want best case scenario for all of you. And that is, best case scenario is always possible when you join a patient advocacy group, like an excellent patient advocacy group, like the Lennox-Gastaut Foundation. And luckily it's national or international. And then you're going to get the highest level of information and care. So I am so happy that all of you are here today, taking the time to improve the condition of your loved one. It makes me feel very heartened about epilepsy and the condition, because what we do is we do a groundswell and not a grassroots, but a grass top effort and a national effort to move things forward at a faster clip. So there's even more hope for our kids and teens and young adults. And the amazing things that you heard earlier today that they're doing, please participate in the studies. Please share your experiences, because that's what propels the condition forward. Okay, any other, what you're most scared of, or any other comments? Okay, we got another one right here. And then we'll get into some, that was one right there. Okay.
One of the very scary is when I'm driving
Yeah.
in the speedway
Yes.
along with her, and she's having a seizure when I'm driving.
Okay. Yes, that is very, very difficult. And I'm not familiar with the speedways. I'm familiar. The highways? Okay. Yes. So no problem. From Southern California, we have the traffic. We have the traffic. So one of our moms, I was helping and advocating for them, and I said, go make sure you get the emergency medication. You need that, because she lived way far away from the hospital. On the way home, back then you get the paper prescription. She had prescription. She was like in the second lane in bumper-to-bumper traffic. Her daughter's having a seizure. She has a prescription in her hand, and she's like, well, what? I can't even get off the freeway. 911 couldn't even get to her. And so you can fill a prescription at the hospital. So that's what I tell people to do. Don't leave the hospital until you have your emergency medication. So yes, it is a concern. And the only thing I can say is to probably be in the right lane so you can pull off if you need to pull off. Okay? Yes, one more.
Yes, so my fear is actually we're going to take it a step ahead to a hospitalization. Twice in my daughter's life, she's 24, we have had providers in a hospital emergency situation who did not want to hear anything I had to say.
Okay.
They knew what was best, to the point of, we will, if we have to, we will have social services come in and take temporary guardianship of your loved one if you go against what we are saying you need. That puts a parent in a very, very scared situation. Thankfully, like I said, it's only been twice in her life, but one was within the last 6 months, which to me is not okay. We should have come a lot further than we are now. And it took me being so panicked, frantically messaging her primary care neurologist saying, oh my gosh. And it was because we were at a local hospital who did not understand her
Not
meds.
an epilepsy center? Okay.
It was not, because our EMS service can only take to the local hospital.
Yes.
And they determine whether or not they want to keep your child.
You may be able to sign something and say, take me to the other hospital, and you have to pay extra. But the other thing we're going to do is we're going to do seizure action plans. And if you create a seizure action plan and your doctor signs off on it, or your epilepsy doctor or epileptologist, then they're more likely to follow a epilepsy specialist, even though we know what our kids need. But one of my notes here is, don't be so surprised when they don't know anything about the local hospital or even emergency departments. But this is why we're planning, is because there are going to be pitfalls along the way. And every pitfall you're going to be able to utilize your documents, your notes, your seizure action plan, and you're going to be able to move forward and step over some pitfalls. But absolutely, and I'm going to share some of my experiences because it's terrifying when you're at a roadblock and your child is seizing, or their life is in peril, because you don't have time for that.
You don't, but what I learned from it and my recommendation to anybody new in this world coming up, have someone that you trust that is very level-headed, because no matter how level-headed you think you are, when it's your child in that situation, you're in that protective mode only, and you're not going to see everything the way you might otherwise see it.
Right.
I have a person now that in a pinch I can sign. She's going to help advocate for my daughter, and she will go to social services at the hospital and make sure that everything is done the right way.
Yes, absolutely. And that is having that GPS and thinking like you just did. It's like, how can I fix this in the future? How can I make this better? Okay, one more, and then we're going to get right into our presentation. Great contributions to this presentation. Yeah.
Flying on an airplane.
Yes, absolutely.
Any advice on that? On the way here to this conference, I almost got deplaned because I told them my daughter has a seizure disorder. The pilot didn't want to fly us unless I had a doctor's note. Luckily, I was able to get on my doctor. I got it, and then they finally said, okay, fine. But this is the first time I've experienced that. But I want to tell them so they don't reroute the plane, do a medical landing, because I can handle it with emergency medicine. So
so you
any
told them
thoughts?
beforehand?
Oh, yeah, and I made that mistake. So any ideas, that'd be great.
Well, you should be, just like if someone had a stroke or a heart attack, I mean, it could happen again, and they're not going to blink an eye over that. But when you say epilepsy, because there's still a lot of stigma and discrimination because of the unknown. They don't know it well enough, and that's why we tell all of you to share your story, to talk about it, because we need to make epilepsy a very common and understood medical condition versus fear and discrimination. And we battle that all the time. Okay, so flying... It's kind of funny. On my last slide, I put traveling with epilepsy, and it's kind of a joke because you guys have already traveled, and traveling is a whole nother thing that I want to really cover as far as transporting meds, traveling. I've never had a medical professional agree on this, but so many of my families say that when they go on a plane, it's the diminished air capacity will cause kiddos to have seizures, and my daughter used to have more seizures on an airplane. But the emergency medications are wonderful. Get extra emergency medications and get a protocol from your doctor, because when you are on a plane, we were on a plane to Hawaii. What's in between California and Hawaii? Nothing. There's nowhere to stop, right? And so, my daughter's having seizures and she's in between. I'm looking at my husband and I'm like, start praying, because, we didn't have, it was back then where we didn't have emergency medication back in the day, okay? And and luckily she stopped, but in incidents, they will divert the plane to the next airport, and you will get off, and they will not let you back on until you have a doctor's note saying you've been seen and you probably will not have any more seizures. But how do you predict that? So I would say probably not say anything, but just because you open yourself up for discrimination, and just have your emergency medication. Now, our children's hospitals, a lot of times they'll say one application of emergency medication, and they want to see the child before the second one, if you have to give a second one, if the medication, because they don't want any issues of overdosing. But in this situation, I would have that discussion with the doctor and say, what do I do on the plane? And then they can give you a seizure action plan for traveling. Okay, so, and then also, if you ever go on a cruise, here's another seizure action plan for that. And if we have time, I'll tell you about that too, okay? Because that, they think, I'll just tell you right now. So going on a Disney cruise, and they deal with special needs and, you know, the Make-A-Wish. And so I said, okay, I'm bringing my daughter, going to Alaska. I need to get the insurance. Well, you can life flight us to Fairbanks. Because I said, you know, I mapped out the closest children's hospital. And they said, oh, we deal with, I called, you know, guest services. We deal with the most fragile medical conditions. And I said, do you deal with epilepsy? Oh, we can handle that. And I said, what is your protocol? And she said, well, we get this little boat. It takes 40 minutes to get to. And then 40, I go, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't want to hear about a 40-minute little boat. I said, we need life flight. They can seize for 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the most, and then we don't know what's going to happen after that. And she says, oh, this is serious. So Disney, the most excellent company in the world that plans for everything, had not planned for seizures. So I got the extra insurance, and she says, I think they'll be able to handle the seizure if you take her, you know, to the medical facility. And I said, yes, but just in case, I want a life flight, because I don't want to be sitting there thinking, I should have done a better job, right? I should know better. So just think about that extra insurance for life flighting if you're on a cruise, because we're on a cruise, and that cruise ship can't step it up to get to, you know, the next port. So you're always using your GPS on how to manage the condition. And we go on vacation a lot. So if you have peculiar questions, I'll stay after and you can answer. But I've had to, I went camping once and they locked us in. They locked the gate. And I said, you can't lock us in because I have to get out in case of a seizure. And he says, well, you walk over to this house, knock on the door. Usually I will wake up. I'm like, usually, because that's all it takes for me is uncertainty, right? Usually, I said, I'm going to drive my car right through that gate. And I said, if it's broken in the morning, you know, my daughter had a seizure. And he goes, okay, you can do that. And so I said, good, that's what I'm going to do. But now I have to have one of those big 4-wheel drive things that can break through things, right? Because we go on all these crazy vacations. But if I wouldn't have asked, like, why are you locking us in? If I wouldn't have been there walking and seeing, I would have never known we were locked in and then tried to get out. So, you know, just have this awareness about you. Okay, so we're going to get started with our emergencies in general. Now, I'm going to shout out some emergencies, why you may be going to the hospital with your child or loved one, and you can shout right back to me. But it could be anything. Generally, it'll probably be a prolonged seizure, but what if it's not a seizure? What if it's a, something else where they injured themselves because of a seizure? What if it's a prolonged fever? What if it's multiple little seizures? What if it, for the female patients, bladder infections that have gotten out of control? What if it's the shunt? Anything else? Why are you going to G-tube? Yep, G-tube. Respiratory, yep. Respiratory pneumonia is one of the biggest. Vomiting, yep. Okay. Behavioral, okay. Anything else? So there are many ways that you're going to experience a crisis, and then planning for the hospital. And my family's very organized. We have our medicine sheet. We have our plans. We have everything. And the first time I went to the emergency department, I forgot it all at home. And, the doctors ask you questions. I'm like, yeah, well, a lot of good all those lists did. And I panicked and forgot them home. So now you learn from your mistakes, right? So that's my husband's job, okay? Because he doesn't remember anything, but he can gather up the go bag and get everything ready. So I had the benefit of interviewing several of the LGS families in my group before I went, because I said, I've developed the list, add to it. And so their experience, I'm so glad they took the time to give me the information, and I think it'll be very helpful. But they told me that they have go bags all the time, and they have short-term go bags and long-term go bags because they can kind of predict how long they're going to be in depending on the previous experience of what they're going in for, okay? I said, wow, that's a lot. I never thought of a short-term and a long-term, but that's what they said. When you're preparing your go bag, you have to think of, okay, will you be there for 2 years? 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, a week? It could be a week. It could be a lot, right? It could be longer depending on what if you have to go to ICU? What if there's, medically induced coma? You just don't know, right? So you want to be able to prepare for at least 3 to 5 days, I would imagine, or have someone who can go to your house and bring you some other supplies. So in the go bag, whether it's prolonged seizures, pulmonary aspiration, pulse ox, shunt, nephrology, respiratory, high fevers, one of the top things is bring your specialized, unique medical equipment. For instance, your tube, if your child is tube fed, then you want to bring the tubes and you want to bring a box of your formula, because what if the hospital doesn't have it and they keep delaying and delaying and delaying? Is that enough to stress you out? That's just, yes. So anything that's going to help your child, your loved one, and you is going to really improve the experience. So, and then everything that goes with the food, syringe, tube, measuring cup, whatever you use, you should have that in your go bag, because while the hospital's looking for something, and then let's say your child has a seizure, then you have another emergency, and then now they're starting to go back to back, right? That's when frustration really sets in. Now, please keep in mind that hopefully you're going to, we try to connect our families with epileptologists at epilepsy centers. And then so when they go into the emergency room, their epileptologist is affiliated with that hospital emergency room, so they can just really connect, or the doctor can come in, or they have on-call epileptologists. And not everyone has that. I do realize that. But when you're thinking about that, since our organization is in Southern California, we get a handful of people that say, well, we want to go to UCLA because it has, name recognition. And I said, well, that's all good and fine, but that's can be 2 hours in traffic. And I said, and then you're going to be 2 hours away from home, and your doctor's here in Orange County, or your doctor's in UCLA, but then your emergency room is here in Orange County. That's a big disconnect, right? So think about if you can keep it all aligned. Does that make sense? And it is helpful. But when you do have to go to the community hospital, then they have to be able to connect with your specific doctor. And that is, that is very important because your doctor has the seizure action plan. The other things that you'll want to bring, Mickey buttons, what if, right? And they don't have. And that's another thing. Has anyone been in that situation? Okay. What do you think about that? Okay.
Yeah, so it was just last month, and his button fell out. And
Yes, it happens.
And we were, and I was by myself, and my daughter was with me.
Of course you were by yourself.
Yeah.
Why would it happen when you had helpers, right?
So it was the same thing. I don't know how long I'm going to be in the hospital for. Let me grab. So as I'm sitting on the ground with him,
Yeah.
I'm like, let me think. All the meds, get the button, get the
Yes.
all the feeding,
Yes.
the feeding
Yes.
pump, the syringes.
Experienced mom here. I love it.
Just thinking about all of the things
Yep.
to bring.
Right.
And then thinking, okay, who can I call to go to the house to get the stuff that I just forgot as
And where
I was
is it?
driving to the hospital.
Right.
So yes.
And then catheters. Who catheters? Anyone using them? Bring your own catheters, because what if they don't have the right size? Okay, and you can, however many you use times, a day times how many days you might be in. Then you're going to make your list of all your meds, and we have that, and that has been handed out to you, right? So list all the meds. Have we handed out the? Okay, if you don't have it, do we have any left over? Yeah. Who doesn't have the worksheets that are going to be so helpful to you? So you're going to write all these things down that we're talking about for your go bag, and Did, can we go to the next slide? Or am I supposed to be doing that? Is that my responsibility? Okay, so I tried to be funny here, and I said, emergencies, ready, set, prepare, or ready, set, go. But I said, let's go, bags. Okay, folks, I'm trying to be funny. I'm trying to make this lighthearted because I have to do it for myself, because when they told me I was doing this presentation, I got all stressed out. Like, oh my gosh, this takes me right back to all the times. And then I had to talk myself down and say, okay, let's just make this palatable and easy to go through. Okay, so list of all your meds, and then what you're going to do is you're going to do that like in a Word document that you can change it, because you will be changing it. How many times do we change it? Every doctor's appointment, right? As they grow, as they gain weight. And then what you're going to do is you're going to print it out, and sometimes you can put it in those plastic sleeves because you're going to take it to the hospital, and you're going to make lots of copies, because you might go to the emergency department and they'll say hand it over, and then they transfer you because you're admitted, then you're in a room, and then they'll ask for all the medications, and you left it in the emergency department. And so bring several copies so you can give it to every professional who's going to take it and start inputting it into the paperless system, right? So bring several copies, update it, and then you'll have also that in your go bag, constantly updating it, and you'll have that list of medication in your car, and maybe one in your purse too, because you never know, and maybe in your spouse's or caretaker's car too, because you don't know whose car you're going to be in when you might be headed off to the hospital, right? And then when you get into, when you're admitted, whatever room you are, tape it on the wall. That way you can just point to it. If you're trying to do something and you're feeding or something, and someone asks you for the list of medication, you point, it's right there on the wall. There you go. I know a lot of our really experienced parents, I learned so much from them. They say, I take my VNS magnet and I magnet the list of medications, to the metal bed or something. I'm like, oh, that's really smart. And then everyone knows where the magnet is too, right? So don't forget the VNS magnet too, because that's important if you still have a magnet. I know that they are self-guided now, but the magnet, if that's on your protocol, the magnet does send a supercharge when used. Okay, now one of the moms said something I thought was really important. She says, if you use those little soft coolers that are in a square, those little soft coolers with the zip top, she says you can actually stack all your meds in there, and you can just kind of pull them up, and they sit there nicely, and you zip it up so they don't fall out when you're like in your go bag. And they don't necessarily need to be cold, but she says she likes them all flat instead of like just thrown around in a bag. And she said that really helps her too. And it also has like a little handle so you can carry it around with you. If you're an organizational freak, that would be helpful. That would be helpful to me. And then another thing is this helpful? Or I see you guys writing, so I think this is helpful. And then not only bring your meds, bring your emergency meds. And I'm going to tell you why. On 2 occasions at inexperienced hospitals, my people have taken their kids in, and they haven't, they have their emergency meds, and they said, you can't administer your medication. We're going to give you our medication just because everything has to be regulated. And that's fine. But when the kid's having a seizure and they need to find the crash box, or they need to find the Versed, or they need to find whatever, and it's taking them a long time, what can you do? Administer. I'm not telling you what to do, but that's why I asked you. But I prefer not to watch my child have a seizure in a hospital, because someone has to go to the pharmacy, put in a request, wait for it, get it out, and okay, you do what you have to do, but just keep that in mind, okay? Because you carry emergency medication around with you. Speaking of emergency meds, everyone knows about intranasal, right? Intranasal meds right here. Diastat intranasal, and there's also a buckle, which is it's a strip. It's called Farm Film. Do I have it in my pocket? I brought an example. Anyway, it's a little like a Listerine strip, and it it's called Libervant, and when the person is seizing and they clench and they're seizing because you don't give it until after 5 minutes, and this is 0 to 2, is you pull the cheek out and you stick it in, okay? Only experienced parents, I would recommend that too, because I don't want anyone sticking their fingers in their mouth, but that's how you do it. But anyway, so that is another one. And then right now there's another emergency med. It's a preventative, and it's a vapor that that they're going to be using to prevent seizures. Not FDA approved yet, but it's coming out. But just to let you know that things are being developed and tested, and to make our lives easier. So stay in contact with this organization, and you'll have all the latest and greatest information. Does everyone have emergency medication? Everyone? Okay, yes, question?
So something to also consider when you're talking about the rescue meds in the room.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've run into is that they don't always have you would expect you go into the ER or you go into your room when you're admitted, they don't always have the oxygen set up. So make sure that they have, sometimes they'll only have the nasal cannula. They won't have a full
Great
mask.
point here.
Right?
Okay.
And so make sure that you have the mask. And then the other thing I ran into was, so they brought the mask, but they didn't have the tree. So I had
Okay.
a mask and I
Yes.
had no tree to hook up the
Okay.
mask to the oxygen. So
Perfect.
just something
Thank you
to-
for that.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
for
yeah.
that. And speaking, let's go back to meds. They don't always have brand name. They may have generic, and I will not allow, it took 14 and a half years to get my daughter seizure free. We're not going backwards. I'm not going back to HE double hockey sticks. Okay. So I bring the brand, and then I say, if your medication isn't here in 30 minutes, because I tell them an hour before, it takes a long time. Every time medication is due, tell them an hour before to prep the meds, get them bedside, and to administer the meds. And it always takes longer. This is a problem that they just can't seem to fix. And we have a great relationship with our hospital. We meet quarterly to talk about advocating for our families and the issues, okay? But it's apparently that they order it from the pharmacy. The pharmacy goes, inundated, and they get the meds. But if your loved one is going to seize, if the medicine's 30 minutes late or an hour late, have your medicine there and tell them you'll sign a waiver, but you're going to give them the meds, because they don't want you giving the meds, because you can bring the meds in their container from the pharmacy so they can see what the meds are and the name, et cetera, and say, this is what's been prescribed, and I'm going to take a med out of here. And they prefer that versus the pill boxes, because they don't know, right? And I can understand that because of liability. So you want to have your meds in the regular containers, and then you show it to them and say, I'm going to give them this. I'm not going to give generic. I will not give my child generic after we fought so hard to get brand name. So then I give the meds, and they sign off on it. Okay, are you ready for a very great...
We have one over here.
Oh, we go. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, you talking about the meds.
Yeah.
How many of y'all have adult children? Okay. Adults totally different than pediatric.
Right.
We just, it's awful.
It's not a fun transition, is it, to go from...
Especially with meds.
Yes.
There are 3 of Caleb's meds, that seizure meds, that they don't carry there.
Okay.
So we always have to bring them in.
Bring
so
your
I
meds.
always bring it.
Mhm.
But they always want to take them and keep them.
And label them and bring them back to you.
No, they
Yep.
want to keep them themselves and give it to themselves,
Oh, my God.
but they don't. It's like pulling teeth
Right.
to get them to do it in a timely manner. I'm like,
Right.
we're probably not coming in for seizures. We're not going to leave with seizures.
Right.
So
Right. That's a good point.
Caleb's had 3 hospital stays this year, and none of it was for seizures. The
Yeah.
first time, first or second, it's all bleeding together now. We kept them in the room. Someone high up in the hospital, or at least so I thought, said that we could keep them in the room and administer them. I signed a piece of paper, everything. Long story short, our pulmonologist came back on rounds 1 week, and he came into our room and is like, y'all need to come with us. And we're like, and we love our pulmonologist. And he's telling us what on earth is happening. And we're like, what do you mean what's happening? we're in here in the hospital, but what's wrong? He goes, they're upset with y'all. And he goes, I don't know why they're upset, because he knows us. But he said, it is about the meds or something. I was like, so-and-so told me we could give the meds.
Yeah.
And he goes, so all these big wigs were going to be called into a meeting with us the next day. They found the risk management person at the hospital found where in their policy that a designated caregiver can give meds. She found it because she has a kid with epilepsy. She gets it.
Wow.
And then their main thing was, how are we going to protect the meds? They gave us a lock box, like a little fishing tackle box with a lock. I showed them everything. They trusted me to put it in the pill container because I make them up the night before, all that. We had everything labeled. Pharmacy worked with us. And it's all working now.
Good.
Yes, I still have to get the key. The nurse holds the key, and I ask her for the key an hour before.
Right.
And then she
Hour
still is
before, I love it.
hour
Okay.
before.
Yes, you do.
That way, because things are going to happen. They're
Another
going to have
voice
emergencies.
of experience here.
Yeah, they're
No.
going to have emergencies.
Right.
And one night when I needed the key, there was someone coding next door,
Right.
and I knew that. And I was like, they were like, is there anything you needed? I was like, I just need the key. But don't stress. They're more important right now.
Yeah.
But they went and got it for me because they know.
Right.
But but everything, it keeps the nurses safe and it keeps Caleb safe.
Yeah.
And so now we had 2 stays after that. And as soon as we get up to the floor, they bring me my tackle box.
Right.
And I'm like, perfect. We got this.
And they can write this in your loved one's care plan so they know what to expect. So,
Right.
and we're going to hit that at what if this wouldn't have worked out, then what do you do? But
Only
so
other thing
every hospital is going to be different. And so to talk about these things, to work them out, and at least our hospital, I think they know and trust me because I'm on top of it. I have the lists, I have everything. And I'm like, I have the medication. And they're like, okay, I'm going to bring you a disclaimer. You sign off on it. And then we take the meds and we give it to her. Fine, whatever you have to do. But you have to start this like a couple hours or the conversation as soon as you're admitted to make these things happen. Does that make sense? So it's part of your seizure action plan, which we're going to talk about.
The only other thing I would add was that list with your medications and all that you were talking about, and so you could give it to the ER and all that.
Right.
Is we have one that has lists of everything what he has. He has Lennox-Gastaut.
Yes.
He has a trach. He has a G-tube. All this, and maybe the last hospital stay. So when the ambulance comes, you can hand this to them and go here.
And all the diagnoses, if that's what you're saying, yes. And also your cell phone number, and I'll tell you why in just a second, but it's all going to come together and you're going to feel super confident. Okay, we have another person.
We also had gone to another hospital that was not familiar with him, and they did not know how to treat. And I just told them, this is what our emergency does. This is the medications they give him. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll do these. Of course, I had what I take a picture of what they write down in the emergency. So I knew what they give him. And so then they were apt to doing that based on the seizures that he was having and knowing that it would be the right medication.
Absolutely. Yes, you have to be prepared for that. And what is the common denominator that you're hearing right now that the last few people have told you? That even advocacy, but even when you go to the hospital, we can't expect them to know everything about epilepsy because epilepsy it's been in the closet for so long, and we're moving it forward and we're advocating and we're doing it the best we can in a sensitive and professional and empathetic way. But every person is different. Every person with epilepsy is going to be more challenging, and the fear factor of what if we can't stop the seizure? So they're under a lot of pressure. We can't expect them to know everything, and that's why we are the ultimate neurological coordinator for our kids, right? And it usually falls to us. and it usually falls to the moms, right? Because that's what I'm hearing, the moms. And the moms know everything, and they have it up here. They've got to write it down on that paper, and they've got to share it, because when things start to go sideways, you're the historian. You are the historian. You have more experience than the doctors, because they probably haven't experienced this. And so you're going to say, what we usually do, it's in the seizure action plan. Here's the list. You got your backup documents. Let's go. This is what we're going to do, right? Go ahead.
In the let's go bag, this might seem odd, but also cash, because you are preparing for your child, but when you're in there and you're in the room.
I got you guys. You're next. The parents are next up. Okay, so speaking of neurological coordinators, I'm going to give you 2 quick stories, because this is the meat and potatoes of this presentation. I really do believe is I've been to the emergency department a lot, and I've had a lot of experiences. I'm going to tell you my worst experience is going to the emergency room. And my husband is a police officer, was a police officer, he's retired. He's a police lieutenant, and he was working one night. Daughter had a seizure, New Year's night. All my neighbors were partying, a little inebriated. Not me, because I can't drink, because I know this was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. It was going to be, and then my husband being a police lieutenant, well, half of the police department shows up, half of the fire department, because they all know him. And luckily, I did not have one drink, because who would be visiting me Monday morning? CPS, right? You got to think of these things, right? And my neighbors are all like, "You're so boring. You never party. You're always worrying about Madison having a seizure." Well, as soon as they scold me for not being fun, here's the fire truck, everything at my house. They come over. "We're so sorry. We were very mean to you. What could we do?" I'm like, "No, leave me alone. I got to deal with this emergency." So fire truck, everything. And then we're off to the emergency department. I saw my daughter was going sideways early on that day, and we did not have an epileptologist at the time. And we had really no one monitoring her, because the doctors at UCLA, I couldn't get a hold of them. So I saw the status absence. So I gave her, a little extra medication, gave her some protein, gave her a little extra medication, and her doctor said, "Stop giving her the emergency medication so often." Well, what else am I supposed to do? He goes, "We're going to develop a plan, because one day that emergency medication is not going to work, because you're giving it to her so often." Okay, twice a week is a lot. Okay, I will admit that. That's back in the day, okay? And I said, "Okay, so what do I do?" He goes, "I'm going to get you a plan." Well, he hadn't gotten me a plan, so I didn't give her the emergency medication. She has a big seizure. We go to the I did give it to her when at the last minute I said, "I can't take this anymore," and gave it to her. She still had the big seizure, and we get to the hospital, very well-known, top hospital, into the emergency room. My husband's there in his police uniform with all his friends, and the doctor, I could tell, is not happy about all the medication I've given her. And so he says, "Tell me everything you've given her." I'm like, she gets, 1,100 milligrams of Depakote, and then 500 milligrams of this. And then I gave her an extra Depakote, and that didn't work, so I gave her extra Zerontin. And I'm not saying you do this, because now we have specialists. But back then, we were it, moms. Who knows? Who are the oldie but goodies and didn't have any help along the way, okay? And then I gave her the emergency medication, and he goes, "Stop right now. Stop. This is a lot of medication." He goes, "I can't OD her. I got to call UCLA." And then I look at my husband like, oh my gosh, even the doctor doesn't know what to do. This was a defining moment. I'm like, what do I do? And my husband goes, "I'm out. I can't remember anything." And I'm like, so I'm there standing alone, and the poor nurse, because the doctor says to the nurse, "Nurse, are you getting this all down?" Because she's writing frantically. He's yelling now at her, and her eyes went from saucers to dinner plates, like, oh gosh, I don't know about this. So he goes, and he says, "I'm calling UCLA." Called UCLA, they got on track, got a fellow, not the epileptologist, because it was 1:30 in the morning, of course, right? And I said, "I'm not leaving here without an extra medication, because she's broken through all of this, and I need an extra medication, because I'm not taking her home, because this is a bad day." And he's like, "Okay, so UCLA and the fellow give the extra medication, and it all works out." But when that was going down, I realized I'm the only one that knows what's going on. So if you're the only one that knows what's going on, that's a lot of pressure. but it's a reality. And if it's a reality, I need to share that with you. So that's why I'm saying the go bag, the medication list, all of the diagnoses, all the equipment that we're going to talk about too, because you are the historical medical coordinator for your child, right? But if you have it all written down, it's stressful when you're sitting there with a doctor in the emergency department trying to remember everything and you're emotional, right? So this is going to be a huge, huge help. Now, I've been to other emergency departments and I said, this is what happened, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, we got it. And I'm like, oh, gosh, thank you. Because, you know, they're so confident, right? Because they deal with that all the time. So you're going to get both sides of this of the spectrum. Be prepared for it. And if you are prepared, then your loved one is going to be much better off. Now, I want to get to the next things because you're going to tell me I'm running out of time here pretty soon. Okay, let's talk about equipment. BiPAP. Does anyone take their BiPAP machine to the hospital because the hospitals only have so many and you have to get on a schedule to use them, right? They don't. Okay, they don't. Yes, the mask. Bring all the equipment because it's calibrated at home settings, and then you can get home quicker if you're using your BiPAP and you use it on your schedule versus the hospital schedule. And respiratory equipment, cough assist. You don't want to share. You want to be on your own schedule if you can, or if you can have someone bring that at a later time. But if you're just getting to the hospital, I know you can't just grab everything. You can also bring your own wheelchair because sometimes they don't have wheelchairs. And I guess it's if your child's an adult, it's even harder to get all of these things. So this is what our families are saying because you want to set them up for respiratory and other things. And our wheelchairs have straps and everything that help them with, recuperation versus the average hospital wheelchair. So that's a big extra. But for running respiratory, my family say it's much easier if you have your own wheelchair. And you may need to get permission to move the patient from the bed to the wheelchair. Have you ever had that? The adult hospitals are so much more rigid, and I'm hearing this from my families. That's why I'm telling you. And then you just have to let them know that the patient needs to be moved and they'll get you help. Leg braces if you have leg braces. And then the other things are their favorite toys, their Kindle, their electronics. And then you might want to have a technology bag that has your phone charger, your backup, because if you get in there and the phone dies and you need to call people, you're usually put yourself last, right? When it comes to the list, a change of clothes for you, some of your favorite snacks, something for hydrating, right? And then someone that you can call at home that knows where everything is. One of my moms uses earplugs because the beeping all night, but she will be up if she hears a seizure. In the pediatric, they don't let us parents leave the bedside because of liability. I don't know about you guys, so that's hard too. But in adult, they expect the adults to go home, so you have to get it written in that you're staying there with your adult. Yes, like a volunteer. Yes. Yes. Right. Yes, so if you need to leave, you can request a volunteer, a one-on-one, and they will get that for you. Okay.
I need to
I'm
bring a heating blanket for my son.
Okay.
Because they take too long to get him a bear hugger.
Okay.
And sometimes it's hours.
Perfect.
And he's hypothermic and he'll
Great.
be 90 when he
Any
goes
of
in.
those specialty things, I don't have all the little specialty things, but I appreciate you bringing up the specialty things. And the moms say bring flip-flops for the showers, a change of clothes, and then if you can, get a volunteer, but step out into the sun for 10, 15 minutes every day to rejuvenate because it gets very, very stressful. Now, I'm going to give you a bonus. Are you guys ready for the bonus? If you are one of those families that they do have your medication and they have all your medication and you're there for 4 or 5 days, then when you go home or you take 4 or 5 of the medications from your supply that you did not use and you stockpile it. Okay? Because you'll just use it and wait till later to get medication. And you start stockpiling because what happens in the case of emergency? We're in California, we have earthquakes. We're not going to be able, they won't give us any extra meds. We can't plan for the earthquakes, et cetera. So we all stockpile and then we rotate them out because we're going to not have any physical places standing. Same with hurricane areas, right? So stockpile that medication and just have it as emergency. Now, when I talked to our hospital, I said, we need to have an emergency medication plan for a catastrophic emergency. And they're like, oh, the pharmacy will give you 3 days of extra. I'm like, well, that's great, but I'm talking about 2 weeks before we can get medication, right? So definitely save that medication because you've been using the hospital medication and you've paid for that and you've already paid for this one. So save it, and in case there is an emergency or you can't get your medication or there's a supply chain issue, which we've been having more and more, you will have those. Does anyone already do that, or am I just? Okay, yes, absolutely. The experienced parents know. Okay, do we have another question? Okay.
One big recommendation for anyone with kiddos over 18, bring a copy of your guardianship paperwork.
Yes, very good.
That should also
Your conservatorship or power of,
Carolina, it's just guardianship.
okay, guardianship.
But it's also your guarantee to stay in the hospital with your loved one.
Yes. I've been hearing a lot with the adults that they're just like, you can leave now. And our parents of medically fragile kids like, no, we're not leaving. Bad things happen when we leave. So yes, definitely.
So,
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say I'm the one behind.
Okay.
So when you take your med list, also take a chart. My suggestion is, this is 35 years of doing this. Take a chart of the med, what the size of the pill is, the time of day it's usually given, and the dosage, right?
Yes.
But also then take a list of 8 a.m. meds are and list all those out, and then separate it by a space, the 12 o'clock meds are, and give a dose, because hospitals will inevitably give the wrong meds at the wrong time. Or they'll say, no, you can't give those two meds together. They have to be separated by 3 hours. And my doctor will say, why? You know, so break it all down so that it's separated and easy to read. I also include a list in case I'm at a hospital that does not have access to my son's records, all of his physicians and all of their phone numbers, you know, their specialty and all of their phone numbers. And like you said, all of his diagnoses.
Right.
So.
And everything should be electronic now because that's the law, but still sometimes the computers are down and they can't access. One of the things that we used to do is when we okay? Okay. Okay. I can't see. Okay. Is when we would take the ketogenic diet on the road and we'd have a cooler, we would write ketogenic diet, medical diet, because we didn't want anyone to steal our food or cooler. So if you put medical bag so that, and then your information in it in case you leave it somewhere or it's left in the emergency department as you're transitioning, or you leave it in one room and with your name and everything on it, then people will know, oh, someone needs to get this back, and they'll try to get it to you, et cetera. Okay?
She has something to add here.
Yes.
I have two, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
When you bring your guardianship papers, or if you have advanced directives, they should scan those into your chart so they're there.
Oh, yes.
Sure, yeah.
Good point. And then we have another person.
I just wanted to add, we've had experience where my son's been hospitalized, and we got wise, you know, a few years back. Doctors that were on staff but weren't our doc would want to change his regular med plan because he's, you know, having breakthrough seizures and they're not used to him. So we had our neurologist write that they had to consult with him before making
Very
any changes to
good.
daily
Yes.
meds. So that doesn't get, there's no confusion about that. So
Right.
into that seizure action plan for specifically the hospital, so.
Right, because they don't know you've been at this for 20 years, and you're at the pinnacle, the utmost seizure control. You don't want anyone changing it. I absolutely agree, absolutely. Okay, any other suggestions before we move on? But this was really important. Okay, you guys, I'm sorry, I can't see because these lights are right in gleaming off my glasses. I take them off, okay.
For the
I gotta come up here,
new-
now I can see.
new parents, if you are going through an emergency and just like you have to remember what you did, what medicine at this time. When you peel off the medicine thing, write the date and time so that you can just say, this is when I did it. And then the next one is, this is when I did it. Because for you to remember or just write it down, at least you have record.
Yeah.
This is what I gave them at this time.
Yeah, well, this is what my husband always says. My wife knows all the information. And I'm like, what? I'm having a crisis too.
I would just like to add, I know she was saying about getting everything approved from your doctor before they actually gave the medicine. We had that happen. He had an overnight EEG, and he was overdosed on the medicine, even with the doctor. Supposedly, I'm not saying anything against doctors or anything like that, but supposedly they had already spoke to the doctor. So they overdosed him on his medication. And when we, brought it up, they were just like, oh, it's nothing to worry about, like, how do we not worry about it? We're first timers, so we don't know much about what the medication does and stuff like that. We're learning as we go. So for them to say, oh, don't worry about it. Nothing's going to happen. We just give him an extra 2 doses of whatever he takes. Like, I guess what my suggestion would be like, stay with the doctor or before they administer the medication. Just kind of be there right next to them because mistakes can happen and everybody's going to make them. So there's just a suggestion, for everyone. Because us as newcomers, we don't know much and we're taking a lot of what you guys are talking about and we really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
One of the things I'd recommend is having your own your caregiver bag, your meds as well, because if they're going to be staying there for an extended period of time, you are too. And if you've got medicine you can't get at or you don't have someone to bring it to you, it's going to be difficult. So I pack a little small one and label it, it's mine, and vice my daughter's. And when I get to hotels, I never unpack it because then if an emergency goes on and you got to grab it and leave quickly, you don't want to have to scatter at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning usually when that happens. It happened at Disney, and we had a fire drill at 2 o'clock in the morning, and people were having a hard time finding their oxygen and all that. So just think about you and what you need to do to be there for that loved one.
Yep, exactly. We have advanced. Okay, another.
Sorry, I just have one more thing to add.
Absolutely.
We've had several med mistakes, and it goes back to what he said. And so we never allow a nurse or anyone to give a med until we see it, and we know it's the right dose. So it can feel rude, but we're like, sorry, this is what we do, and we do it every time, no matter who they are, a doctor, nurse. And it's whether they've been there for 2 days.
A necessary precaution.
Yeah.
Who's on the ketogenic diet? Whose kids are on the ketogenic diet? Okay. Have you ever been hospitalized for a procedure and they run an IV? You check that IV twice because 99.9, well, 100% of the time they're going to run glucose. And you have to say, let me check it. And so, yeah. Yes. We did the same thing, and my daughter was getting her tonsils out because of obstructive apnea. And my husband, I just took off. He goes, where are you going? I said, I just think they're going to run glucose. And I went back into the room, the operating room, and I said, can I check the IV bag? And she goes, what are you doing here? I said, I just had this feeling I need to check the IV. She goes, glucose, we use it for everyone. I said, stop saline. And she said, we run glucose. And I said, look at her chart. and I'm shaking because she almost hooked it up, and I'm shaking, and I'm starting to sweat. And she said, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. You are absolutely right. Thank you for stopping me." So even it was in the chart, it was in, and she goes, "It's right here, and it's in, red." And so please trust your instincts. Check, double check, double check. I don't know what would have happened if they would be running glucose. And no, yeah. And why did this happen to me? I mean, I just think, and I'm like, okay, I need to share it. This is not my information. I have to experience it to understand how many things go wrong. Okay, we are moving forward, and we're going to have part 2 of this presentation, right? Okay, so now we're at the hospital, and we're hospitalized for any of the various things you can be hospitalized for epilepsy. And what are the top 10 things that you want the emergency department staff to know? Now, the good thing is you already have your med list. You already have the list of diagnoses. You already have the list of the pertinent things you need to know. Now, what do they need to know that's so important? Because your child is unique and individual, and epilepsy is very complex. So what's the most important thing, do you think, that they need to know?
Our emergency list from our epileptologist has what the EMTs should give, and if that doesn't work, what the emergency room
Right.
provider should give.
Okay.
And then, of course, his specific diagnosis and seizure types and complete med list.
Okay, what about if you're going in and worst case scenario, it's been 5 minutes that your loved one was seizing, paramedics took 3 to 5 minutes, they're still seizing, and what about the protocol for stopping the seizure? And if you, as a parent, know the magical formula, what it is, IV Keppra, IV this, IV that, because they're going to go to IV. Now, not every medication is an IV, right? And what I do is I tell my families that when they finally get to the emergency room and they figure out something, because we have the difficult kids where they fail, and a lot of times they have to go into medical comas, okay? And what is it, ketamine, which is the animal tranquilizer? Is that what it is? Okay, so it works. It's the only thing that stops one of our really fragile kids. And so it was in the pediatric notes. And so when she transitioned to adult, I said, make sure to tell them. And she goes, well, I don't feel comfortable telling the emergency staff how to handle. I go, oh, no, you tell them. I said, otherwise you're going to be calling me. And she didn't feel comfortable saying, and her daughter had 15 seizures. And I said, no, you can't have 15 seizures while they're trying to figure it out. I said, do you want me to call them? Because I can't hear that she had 15 seizures. So we've got to fix that. Does that make sense? So you are the neurological expert. So you make sure when you transition that they know exactly the emergency protocol that will stop the seizures, okay? Because they're going to use what they've experienced. They've maybe experienced 2 IV medications. They're going to go to their go-to when they need to go to your go-to. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's important. What else is important that they know? Allergies, medications that they're currently on because you don't want drug interactions, right? Respiratory issues, aspirational issues, sensitivities, anything that could make things worse, right? We don't want to do that. So you want to put that down. And then what one of the moms told me is she makes signs that are laminated that say, my daughter is nonverbal and developmentally delayed, because when she steps out to go to the bathroom or is gone, sometimes the CNAs or the phlebotomists will come in and try to talk or ask her, why aren't you wearing this, or why aren't you doing this? And they can't communicate. So then they'll know. And so it doesn't present like another issue that they have to get the floor manager or something. So any specialized information, put it on there with your phone number. And I say put them in those plastic sleeves or laminate them so you can use them time and time again. Does that make sense? And she says the most important thing she does is when she gets admitted and you have that whiteboard where they write things, she writes mom, and her phone number, because if she steps out and the doctor rounds and she misses the doctor, she'll write, doctor, call me, because she wants to know. She has to know. So there's no excuse that the doctor doesn't call her and say, I'm rounding, where are you? And then she can come from the bathroom or whatever happens, so you don't miss the rounding, because that's your lifeline, right? You've got to know what's going on. What other things are so important that the doctors, okay, we got hand right there. If they have a VNS, that's, if they have implantable devices, VNS, RNS, deep brain stimulation, okay?
That was one of my points.
Okay, thank you.
Because a lot of times, emergency room doctors make an assumption that Billy has a defibrillator.
Yes.
As opposed to a VNS.
Right.
But the other thing is that a lot of times we end up in an emergency room because he's injured himself from a seizure, not because of a continuous seizure
Right.
situation.
Got it.
So he might be poor of speech.
Yeah.
He might be dazed. He might be seriously injured. And we have encountered twice situations where in hospitals where we are not known, where physicians have their automatic response has been, he's sitting there with an obviously broken hand, a concussion, needing stitches, and the response has been, we can't stop the seizures. We can't stop the seizures. There's nothing we can do. Now, he's had the seizure. There's nothing we can do to stop the seizure. And Billy, God bless his soul, finally said to the doctor, I'm hurt.
Yeah.
Help me, I'm hurt.
Right, right.
So it's important to kind of have a plan in place how you're going to handle. I mean, I finally took this young doctor and looked him right in the eye and said, he's been seizing for 25 years.
Right.
At that point, you're not going to stop them.
Right. We're here for the hand.
This is,
Yeah,
we're here because his hand is
yeah.
obviously broken. How about if you fix it? So,
Well, that leads me into the other thing. One of the moms said, when you're talking about your loved one's diagnosis, she goes, go from head to toe. Head, epilepsy, DBS implant, had brain surgery, and then you go down to, okay, now we're into respiratory and the VNS implant here. And she says, just go from top to bottom. It's just so easy to do that. And that way you don't miss anything. And then you can write that down too on their list as far as diagnoses. And then that way they understand everything they're doing. One important thing is if your child is tube fed, G-tube fed, is another plastic sign that says NPO, nothing by mouth, because they might not know that. And this can prevent aspiration, et cetera. Because not everyone, and think how many different people come into your hospital room when you're admitted. So many different people, right? And every different person is a chance for a mistake to happen. Okay, what else for the top 10 things? Yes.
Sorry, you had one here first.
For restraints, when they need restraints put on because they pull out IVs.
Yes.
But then we went one time to one place and they put a glove restraint on him
Yeah.
to not pull out the IV.
yeah.
They did it totally wrong, and they came in the morning and they're like, how did he get his IV out? Well, there was supposed to be a flap that keeps the hands in. They didn't put the flap on, so he was able to pull out the IV. So knowing your
Right.
restraints, if you have to have your kids
If you,
restrained.
yes, if you have to have restraints, just go ahead and say that, because they're going to try everything and not use restraints. And I think they have to get permission, and there's protocol, et cetera. So just go ahead and say, please, this is the normal protocol. Let's do this. And let's not wait for them to rip off their EEG cap or rip off the IV, et cetera, because that's very important for them to know. Oh, one of the other things that one of my adult parents said is, when you go to the adult facilities, make sure they have the seizure mats that go over the side rails for in case they have seizures. Is that automatic at wherever you guys go? Oh, okay. So it was automatic at pediatric, but when we went to adult, Now we're on a campaign that it has to happen immediately when they're admitted. So you ask for those as soon as you get there, because it takes them a while to find them. That means they're not using them if it takes them a while. But yeah, we need to get them into that protocol to increase their level of excellence for our loved ones with epilepsy. Okay, another. Okay, go ahead.
My daughter right now is not medical complex. She's verbal. She walks, she do a lot of things, but mentally, her cognitive level is like first grader. And the last time that she was in the hospital was because behaviors, uncontrolled, aggressive behaviors related to a medicine also. So she lost a lot of weight, but also she was hitting herself, hitting us, and she say things like that were not true, like we have mistreated. ¿Cómo se dice maltratar?
Yes, they.
Mistreated.
Yeah.
And so I was so scared that they accused me of
Yes.
tratando a mi hija.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
And that's not
Yeah.
true.
Right.
What what advice you can give
Right.
me?
I've lived this. Thank you for bringing it up. Now I'm going to want to cry, but I'm going to laugh because you guys can laugh. My daughter, who's verbal, an adult, told one of her caretakers that we lock her money up in the safe and don't give it to her, which is true. But social services told us not to give her money from Social Security because she spends it all and she can't count money. And so they told us, you're responsible for it and you're going to be in charge of it. So we did so she told the people, they called Adult Protective Services on us and we got investigated. And we said, well, if you just would have called us and asked us, we can show you the form. So it does happen.
My daughter called 911
Yeah.
one time. And
Yeah.
called
So because they don't
like
understand
that,
the impact.
So,
But it leads me to my next thing, and I'll get back to is when you go in for your LMU, long-term monitoring unit, your video EEG, your long-term EEG, whatever you call it in your area, there's a video camera up there, and they can listen. You are on camera all the time. They will see that you're the perfect parent. They're going to see everything. So, but they also can hear everything, okay? So please be aware of that. And when I sometimes go visit our families and they want to tell me how horrible the nurse was or doctor, I'm like, whoa, 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 let's step outside. Before we have this conversation, and I point to the camera and they're like, oh, I forgot I'm on video. Do you guys remember you're on video all the time for those long term? Yes. And so I'm going to give you my phone so you can take a picture of me doing this presentation. But anyway, know that they can hear, they push a button and they can hear. And because have they ever talked to you when you're, like if your child's having a seizure? I always say child, but if your adult's having a seizure and you're standing and here's the camera, you're standing in front of the bed, you have to stand away. Don't stand in front of the camera because they need to see. And I'll hear, move away from the bed, move away from the bed. I'm like, who's talking? Who's yelling at me now? It's so stressful. And it's like, Mom, it's us in the EEG room. Move away from the bed. And I'm like, okay. So just keep that in mind, please. And I always tell my family, don't do anything crazy because I know all the doctors. Don't say anything crazy because I know all the doctors. And then my husband, it's 11:30, he calls me and says, your dog is at the emergency vet. I don't think he's going to make it. I go, what do you mean he's not going to make it? And so I start acting crazy, okay? And he says, well, it's already $700. We got to call it. I go, I'm on video. And I said, $750? I said, we are not going to call it. That is my Prozac. He is my happiness. I said, if you want me to keep your daughter alive in that bed over there, you better keep my dog alive. When I get home, my dog better be alive. This is a team effort. And he's like, well, how much do you think we're going to spend? Then my daughter looks over at me and she goes, well, it's not my dog. I don't care. And I'm like, what is wrong with this world? I'm having now 2 crises. And so I start yelling at him and I realize, oh, I just broke my own rule because they're video. So, okay, so you can't plan for everything, but just please know that you're on video and just keep that in mind. But Sometimes you see the police come to the EEG units because someone has been abusing their kid because they got it on video. Does that make sense? So, and if you're going to do something you're not supposed to do, don't do it on video. Okay.
Can I?
Okay.
Can I just add something?
Okay, we got to get to,
Just hold their time.
yeah.
Can I? Oh,
Okay.
Can I just add?
Yes.
Just a quick.
Yes.
So just a suggestion about one of the things that I think ED staff really need to know.
Thank you,
is,
because I've run out of suggestions.
I think you guys know I'm a pediatric epileptologist, so I always say kids, you guys know your loved ones the best, right? So you know when they're actually in status versus when they're not, but the ER staff might not know that. So I think you are so important in preventing over-treatment of seizures because you know what their baseline is. This is just so applicable in case you go to the ER for non-seizure emergencies, just to let them know when you would use a rescue medication, just so over-treatment does not happen, right? And then unnecessarily prolong
Excellent.
the admission. So thanks, guys.
That-
And the baseline
Thank you.
seizures.
There's so much to go over, and
You're doing great.
thank you, but there's so much to go over. Okay, we have to go. Okay.
You guys can talk to her afterwards.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go emergency department protocol. I think we kind of gone over that. The medication list, unique and medical needs. I'm going to just switch. There's so much to go over, and I haven't even done my entire list, but I will be here later if you want to talk. I'm going to be here until the end of this conference. And then we have general Q&A. But is there something that we haven't covered that you just have to know before you leave? Because I don't want anyone to leave without knowing that one piece of information that they came for. Okay. Mental health, yes. Absolutely. Joining this organization and getting this community of support is the most important thing you can do. Number two, I recommend that empirically that parents get into counseling. 80% of relationships, marriages will end because of having special needs kids. And you can do it, folks. You know, you have some shining examples of how to manage stress, and counseling is so very important. And then your children, please, siblings, get them into counseling because they could be having a lot of issues. They're never going to tell you because you're already stressed out, and they don't want to stress you out anymore. Okay, I want to say, great, you guys are here. We did it. We got through this. We weren't all stressed out. We shared knowledge. We've empowered one another. You are the neurological coordinator of your child. You are the lucky charm of your family, and your charm is going to get you through all of this. And we are more powerful than we know, and we're going to have best case scenario every single time because you came here and you shared your knowledge with everyone else. So I thank you. I honor and respect all of you.